when Jason got married, that's when we were in Vegas, and he came up and was excited that he had just bought a house over there for $3,000.
Can you imagine if you just held that property for 10 years?
The lot is worth $300,000 today. Welcome back to Real Investing, where we talk about real investing for the everyday investor. I am Tim Harridge. This is
Ryan Harper.
And we're joined today by Ben Allgeyer.
Got it.
From the home of that football team that
Taylor Swift
has a short. I'll just go with that one. Taylor Swift's football team.
Yep.
Might as well be at this point, right?
Brings people to the city. We don't care.
Money's money.
Agreed.
Well, I'm just going to dive right in because I don't like long intros. Brings people to the city. You and I have talked over the last year or so. You're in Kansas City. Lots of interesting things happening up there. There's some soccer thingy happening.
World Cup.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
That soccer thingy.
Yep.
I've heard of that.
You've got the Kansas City Chiefs that are doing pretty good.
They're okay.
Now sponsored by Taylor Swift, which has helped.
Yeah, it does.
You don't even need to win a Super Bowl. But how is real estate in Kansas City? Just teach us, Obi-Wan.
Obi-Wan. I like that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put that on my business card. It's different. There's a lot of players in that market. And we can still buy houses for $40,000. We were talking on the way here, and one of the guys we were in the car with, he goes, "How's the market?" I'm in Columbus. I'm like, "We're still buying houses under $100,000. Do it all day long."
Wait, how much?
Under 100.
What was that, like 20 years ago?
Yeah. You guys don't have that anymore.
Well, it's why I want to start loaning, because the median home price in Kansas City is still kind of low, but the taxes, the property tax structure is still, you can cash flow houses pretty well in Missouri and Kansas. I'm not a big fan of Kansas because of some restrictions on foreclosing.
I agree. That's what we do most of the time, is foreclosures.
Yeah, so you're still specializing in a foreclosure business in 2024 when I heard that the foreclosure industry is dead and there's no way to buy houses that way.
Buying 2 a week.
2 a week?
Uh-huh.
Pre-foreclosures or foreclosures?
Foreclosures, pre-foreclosures, all over the place. Yeah.
Is that, real quick, I mean, I like to joke around that I'm real estate adjacent.
Yeah.
Mainly because, I've shifted away from the real estate world to more of the media production world.
Yeah.
In Texas, first Tuesday of every month, every county auction, they do the foreclosure auction. Is that a nationwide thing, or is that exclusive to Texas?
So in
Because sorry to interrupt. The reason I ask is if you're buying foreclosures every week,
It's just Texas.
Is it just Texas? Because I was going to say, how are you going to buy a foreclosure every week if it's only on the first Tuesday?
Yeah, so we go straight to the homeowners before. So we have pre-foreclosure status in Missouri. A lot of the other states we work in don't have pre-foreclosure. They just put it straight into the foreclosure pipeline. But we have a status called pre-foreclosure where it's not technically in foreclosure yet. And then the actual foreclosure timeline is about 30 days in the states that we work in. So we go straight to the homeowner before the bank takes their property, negotiate the deal, and buy it straight from them.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just the whole 40,000 thing still got me stuck.
Why?
Well, I mean, look, I've been doing this 20-something years, and I mean, the last time I can't rehab a house for 40, much less buy it for that.
Yeah.
What are you doing with these? I mean, like, you're buying them for 40 and what? Like, putting them back on the market, you're turning them into rentals, you're fix and flip.
Well, I'll tell you what, the houses we're buying for 40, we don't want to be in those areas. So we're closing on them, selling them immediately. We'll go in, maybe do some clean out, but number one, our contractors don't want to work in the areas where these $40,000 properties are. And we have a ridiculous buyers list of people that love these properties for Section 8.
So I'm also currently working on a loan for you.
You are?
In Little Rock, Arkansas.
Yeah.
That is not Kansas City. How did you make that transition?
Well, you know Todd.
Yeah.
His brother came to us a couple years ago and he said, "Hey man, I really want to get into real estate. I'm tired of being a firefighter. I just need a change." And we didn't think he was serious. We're like, okay, here's a whole list of things to do. And he went and did those. And then he started bringing us properties. And we're like, okay, well, let's see if the foreclosure model works in Little Rock. And it does. That property that we're working on has a foreclosure date, and we're going to close before that foreclosure date.
Yes, we are.
40,000.
40. What is that one?
I don't know.
42.
I was
42.
kidding, but
No, that one's 42.
Ooh. Yeah. The total loan's like 80 something, I think,
Mhm.
because of the rehab component.
Mhm.
So yeah.
So I think a camera over there we can trade you for.
You probably could. You should see this thing, man. It's not a house you want to live in.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I could trade you my camera for a house.
But, I mean, that's what I'm hearing. You know, that's insane. Because again, it's like in early when I 02, 03 real estate. That's what I'm thinking. You know, or even the early 2012, 13s. Like maybe you could find those deals, the $35,000, $50,000 house. But in 2024, ain't no way that's happening unless somebody's giving you a. I don't even think you can get lots for that size of a deal.
No, not really.
Not here.
I'm looking out the window trying to. I mean, right over there. For those of you that aren't,
Yeah,
I mean, this
exactly.
is great for videos that are not mobile. What are we looking at?
is Trinity Groves.
Oh yeah,
And
Bishop Arts District.
when Jason got married, that's when we were in Vegas, and he came up and was excited that he had just bought a house over there for $3,000.
Jesus.
And I was like, "Are you sure? That area is kind of rough." And Jason was kind of like a couple cuss words. He's like, "You just lost that on a roulette roll. At least I got us a house." And I was like, "That's a good point."
Can you imagine if you just held that property for
The
10
lot
years?
is worth $300,000 today. So anyway, we just went down a trip down memory
Yeah.
lane in Dallas real estate.
And stupidity.
And the lesson is I shouldn't have gambled, I guess.
Right.
I got 4 more if you want them.
For $3,000?
No.
Okay.
For 40. In the 40s. In the
Okay.
40s.
That's like a bad night at the bar with you.
Right.
Yeah.
There was a
I'm
little.
just going to sip my coffee.
Yeah.
So are you a nationwide buyer or only in like Kansas City?
We do Kansas City. We do Arkansas, Oklahoma, Nebraska, Iowa, and then St. Louis.
Now, do you have teams in all those places, or is it, hey, everything's over the phone?
Yeah,
through
the only group or the only guy that we have on the ground is his brother down in Arkansas, but everywhere else we just do it over the phone.
And are you wholesaling, or are you flipping, or are you buying and holding?
In
or-
other cities that we don't have boots on the ground, it's strictly wholesaling.
Okay.
From our masterminds that we're a part of, we've got guys all over the country that we can just call and say, "Hey, we got a deal. You want to partner with us on it?"
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
What? I know you've been active for a while in real estate investing, and I want to get into your other businesses in a minute, but let's just stick here for now.
Okay.
What has been the biggest adjustment that you and Todd have had to go through in the last 12 months?
We lost our director of operations in a way that I never thought would happen. He was the director of operations for all of our companies. Todd's best friend for 50 years. And he just left.
Oh, he quit.
He left.
You didn't lose him.
No, he left.
I was
yeah.
going to help you find him.
No. We know where he is.
Now, do you think it's an element of burnout, or just got done with it, or just doesn't like you anymore, or like? I'm just trying to see, is there a lesson to be learned here?
The lesson to be learned is, regardless of if it's your best friend in the freaking world, you need to have documentation in place. We had nothing in place for his best friend. And one of the companies that we bought, he went and took the entire company and started his own. And we had no recourse because we had no documentation in place because we never thought that would happen. And it cost us a lot of money.
Like when you say he took things, is it he just took the intellectual IP, or was it the?
He took the people.
Oh,
Yeah.
So he basically took the business, but not the branding.
Yeah. And started his own brand.
Mm.
Yeah. It was a learning lesson for sure. We're still getting through it.
Okay.
That's a little rough.
Yeah.
But I think there is a lesson there of, you're right, documentation, because if you handshakes don't work, reciprocity doesn't work. It's, you got to have documentation in place.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And we thought in Missouri it was more of a handshake type of deal. That's how we've done a
Well-
lot of business in Missouri. Is
well,
just
one thing-
handshakes, and now we're not doing that
Because the
anymore.
biggest thing that, like, because, you know, I work in media,
Yeah.
and like scope is so important. And like documentation of that scope is so important. But it's almost similar to like where if you have a tenant in place and you let them skate on rent, like with us, it's like if Tim's like, hey, I want to do this and then this, and let's add this, I'm like, Yeah, okay, fine, they'll do that. But ultimately, it always bites us in the ass because if you're adding to the scope, but you're not adding to the bill, you're screwed. So
sure.
it's similar in that ways.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay, that sounds awful.
Wow, Captain Obvious.
But my question was more about the real estate market, not the guy screwing you. So
Yeah, but you learned a lot there from that story.
I know, but
Thank you, Ben.
I'm still trying to understand what the housing market's like. How has your, other than
Yeah, that's a universal lesson, not necessarily a recent market
Well,
lesson.
he didn't specify. He kind of
did.
just said,
He
"What's
said
your
last 12
biggest
months."
lesson in the last 12 months?" He didn't necessarily
You know what?
specify that it was for
I
real
agree,
estate.
but I also agree with the intent
would
of
you
the
tell
market.
me about the real estate market in Kansas
Thank
City,
you.
Missouri,
in the
Thank you.
last 12 months?
That's good.
with the reference of the previous 12 months?
I can do that, Tim.
Thank you. Jesus Christ, it's going to be one of those hours.
Yeah. In the bar open yet?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, perfect. We've learned that there is a lot of investor dollars coming into our city and a lot of players from outside that are coming into our city. We've got people from Vegas now just swarming the market. We've got people from California, and they're all taking their operation that they had in their city and implementing it into Kansas City because they can buy properties for $40,000.
Do you, and I was joking earlier about Taylor Swift,
Yeah.
but I'm kind of not. Like, do you think there is that effect of like, oh, by the way, there's a lot of investment dollars coming here because of the Taylor Swift effect? Because it's a very real thing, because there's countries that are building multi-billion-dollar stadiums just so they can attract her to have a concert.
Yeah.
And if she's coming to Kansas City every other week for a Chiefs game,
Yeah.
that's bringing nationwide attention
you
to the city.
serious?
I swear to God, this is
Oh my
happening.
God.
Like, you can hate on Taylor Swift all you want, but that chick is a beast.
Our ticket prices doubled when she started coming to games.
It's insane. It's insanity.
I hope I get hate over it. Like I could not tell
We
you
could bring all the Taylor
I
Swift
could
hate
not tell you
it was
a single song she sings.
That's just not true.
Shake it off.
I don't believe that.
Shake what off?
bullshit.
Okay.
Bullshit.
I just don't.
Yeah.
there's
What
no
is
way.
Shake It Off?
That's her song, Tim.
No,
Sing it.
whatever.
I literally don't.
I say out your lid.
See?
Huh?
Got nothing on my brain.
That's it.
That's what people say. That's what people say. Shake it off. Shake it off.
I kind of understood the rhythm at first, but I don't know the song.
I just didn't want to get canceled by a YouTube algorithm copyright infringement.
Anyway,
Well, yes.
I'll look this up
Yes.
post production.
But anyway, back
Yes.
to the business side of it.
All right, so
There is an effect. And what I'm trying to get to is, do you think that there is a correlation to all that media attention, big business attention, therefore, oh, there's $40,000 houses, let's bring that in?
So we were seeing that kind of trending where people were coming in before the whole Taylor Swift boom happened.
Right.
But now we got the World Cup coming to Kansas City. We have all of these things that are just being built around the city, all these investor dollars that are building into areas of the city that had never been built in before. Like we have an area in our city called West Bottoms that was just like for haunted houses.
Mm-hmm.
They're tearing the whole thing down and putting like $100 million into that part of the city.
Wow.
It's crazy what they're doing. And yes, people like Taylor Swift, where now you have all of these people coming into the city. Like we had people from teams that weren't even playing the Chiefs coming into the stadium strictly to hope to see Taylor Swift that didn't care about football at all.
Yeah.
So there's people coming to the games just to see her.
wow. I just read the lyrics, so I have heard that song.
Yeah.
All you had to
He was
say-
trying to be the cool
All
guy.
you have to do is say play, 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 play.
What?
What?
And it's the lyrics. It was like, anyway.
But the thing is, though, like, fine, you don't like the music, that's fine. But there is a business element to the Taylor Swift effect
For sure.
that I think is unique to our timeline.
Yeah, I read about it in the Wall Street Journal. I mean, you're
Yeah.
right. I mean, it's like the money that follows her wake is insane.
Right. Because, and again, it's if Taylor Swift was in the 60s, it wouldn't, because the Beatles are epically the Beatles.
Yep.
But now you have social media, you have all this attention. It's a crazy world we live in where you can marry business, marry this, marry attention. Like she literally
Marry
is
a football player.
Well, hopefully. I mean, I'm all for it.
I think they're already married.
Hey, welcome to the Taylor Swift Swift Watch podcast,
Swift
where three adult males who may or may not like Taylor Swift discuss
one of
all
which
things
can't
Taylor
even pick her
Swift.
songs out of a lineup.
Your entire demographic of people who watch this is going to flip.
You know, it'd be funny if this podcast literally gets hundreds of thousands of views and people are like, "We love Taylor Swift. You know who she is."
You said people from Vegas are coming here. You mean like wholesalers and real estate companies?
Yes.
Okay.
You mean Ryan Pineda?
Exactly. He is
we
in
go.
our market now.
You should look at him.
I saw, what's that?
You should look at the camera and say, "Hey, Ryan."
Hey, Ryan. I see your marketing in our city.
See, that's what's interesting to me though, because like markets like Columbus kind of used to be the Midwest cash flow market where you could buy a house for less than 100 and cash flow it.
There's people in Columbus, the Josh and Tiffany High, they are investing in Kansas City.
And is there enough houses in Kansas City? I mean,
yeah.
What? So outside of like Dallas, I can understand the Dallas market exploding because the amount of businesses that are coming from New York, coming from California, there is an explosion of business headquarters companies coming to Dallas. What other than the World Cup that's going to happen once? What's happening in Kansas City for that explosion?
Panasonic just built a massive plant, and the entire Northland, they're putting in an Amazon plant up there. They have
there are jobs,
massive businesses that are coming to Kansas City and building in the Northland where there's nothing. It's right next to the airport. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of acres of just empty land, and they're putting these plants right there, so people can come to the airport.
Do you know how many jobs that'll be?
I don't know. That is a good number that I should know, but I don't.
I mean, you don't have. I was just curious.
No, I know. Somebody told me, and I forgot. I could make something up, but I'm not going to do that.
It's the internet. Nobody will check.
Job growth, economic growth.
Yep.
I mean, look, it's kind of basic capitalism, right? I mean, if you have jobs, people live there because they want to work and get money, and if they have money, then they have it to spend.
Yep.
It's kind of self-supporting.
Well, a company from Texas just bought our plaza for $100 million. Like our Country Club Plaza, a company from Dallas just bought it, and they're going to redo the entire thing. And it has been it's the center of the city.
It's only $100 million. Everything there is cheap, Ryan. We should go to Kansas City. So, what's the difference in the Kansas City side of Missouri and Kansas, real estate wise? No one's ever been able to answer this question for me.
So there's one pocket in Kansas that they're trying to develop that is still super, super cheap homes. That's where they built Sporting, our soccer team. They have the racetrack out there where they do NASCAR races. They're trying to build that out. But the rest of like the metropolitan, that's Kansas City Metro, is higher priced homes than Missouri. They're like it's Johnson County, and it's where all the wealthy people in the Kansas City area move to.
But didn't you allude to something earlier? Like I believe you said in Kansas, there's regulations or rules that are in place.
Foreclosures, yeah.
So do you think there's an effect there when it comes to investing that maybe Missouri is better, or is it just for that one little detail?
The foreclosures are much harder to do on the Kansas side. Buying the real estate over on the Kansas side, it's just more expensive because the houses are much newer than on the Missouri side in those little areas, and they're closer to downtown than they are on the Missouri side.
So I'll try to trigger some Dallas-Fort Worth people. So you're basically saying that Kansas side's like Dallas and the Missouri side's like Fort Worth. Lower price and less desirable?
Sure.
Where's that $100 million plaza? Is that Kansas or Missouri?
It's on the Missouri side right next to Kansas.
That doesn't help.
Well, right around the plaza.
If it was on the other side of the river, it would have been worth $200 million.
So right on the Missouri side, right around that plaza, is really, really bad houses.
In Missouri.
Uh-huh.
So Kansas is nice, Missouri is not.
Make that a real.
I mean, I like Missouri.
Because you can buy cheap.
Well, yeah, and I'm from
Where
there.
do you live?
Missouri.
Okay.
Yeah. We have a thing called Johnson County snobs. We make fun of the Missouri people make fun of the Johnson County people.
And Johnson County is in Kansas?
Is in Kansas,
okay.
Correct.
I just love it. I used to live in Joplin, Missouri.
I do feel
the tornado went through there.
Yeah.
I do feel this is a little bit of the resonant of like the whole who's on first, what's on second, that kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
I think this conversation could be that over and over and over.
We're
Yeah.
going there.
Yeah.
So you buy businesses too?
Yeah.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you for moving us along.
Why the shift?
I was tired of building them. They take a lot to build, as you know,
Yeah.
and I'd rather just buy them with operators in place and do it that way, and then just take what we've learned on the marketing side of the real estate side and implement that into businesses that already have revenue. A lot of these guys that we're talking to don't even have a website. They just have organic marketing. So we go in and implement actual marketing strategies.
Explode their business. It's crazy. I have a buddy of mine who has a massive HVAC company here in North Texas. Doesn't even have a website. Doing millions of dollars in revenue every month. No website.
There's so many of them out there.
And it's insane to me.
Yep.
And I'm like, do you know what Harper Belmont could do? If you just give us $25,000 a month, how much we could do organically to explode your business even more?
Yep.
I mean, just imagine.
I mean, like that reaction, you probably see it over and over and over.
Well, why haven't you done this yet? I didn't have to.
Right.
I didn't want to grow my business. Okay, I will.
So what all businesses have you bought?
We bought a residential and commercial painting company that
Where?
was doing very well. It's the whole metro area.
In the Missouri or Kansas?
It was on the Missouri side.
Okay.
But we
Well, no, I
service
have
Kansas
to
as well.
ask. You can just say Kansas City, but you said then you have a security company in Oklahoma. Pre-show, you were telling me all this other stuff.
No, we have a security company based in Kansas City, but we have we market to
Gotcha.
areas outside. We're
Gotcha.
trying to get into the school systems, so we have to go outside of just Kansas City to expand this into multiple markets.
And security is in like a security system or like security people?
AI weapons detection, mostly.
Oh,
So this is a tech company.
We partner with 2 tech companies that build it,
Buzzwords.
and then we go and sell it, and we do all the integration, we do the assessments, and then we work with the school districts to basically implement it into what they've already got. So we're putting AI weapons detection into school systems to prevent shootings.
So is it cameras that like, hey, detect bulges, whatnot? Oh, that's probably a weapon?
Brandished weapons.
So it's not going to detect.
No, because there's a lot of states that are open carry. So we're
Even in schools?
well, not in schools, but they're not going to redesign the whole.
So
algorithm
like
for-
basically your technology is like a brandished weapon. It's going to set it off alarm very quickly because most likely somebody's not watching that video camera all the time.
if you would go into the command centers and see all of the cameras on a school, there's no way anybody could detect that.
Right. But it's
So-
going to go bing, bing, bing.
Within 3 to 5 seconds, it automatically alerts them that there is a brandished firearm, and it will track that person from camera to camera to camera to camera, give a full description of what they look like, where
Right.
they're at in the building, and it lets law enforcement go straight to that spot.
Because I'm assuming like a 30-second, even if it's a 30-second heads up, that's probably enough to save people's lives.
And most of the time, the statistic is anybody who's committing an act of what they call terror spends 6 to 7 minutes in the parking lot preparing for that act with a brandished weapon. So we see them on the cameras while they're outside preparing, and we lock the school down before they even get inside.
well, like that dude in the Uvalde thing. He just comes strolling up through the field.
Yep.
Well, I mean,
This is not going to be the topic today.
I know, right? Like, well, like you look at like they made a whole movie about Columbine, and I understand it was, but they tried to make it as timeline specific as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But just them walking around, it's just it's heartbreaking to see how long people can just lollygag around and then just murdering people.
Sad.
Hey,
I'm gonna go have a drink.
Tiffany, real estate.
We're trying to prevent that. So yes, we buy businesses.
So you bought a security company, AI weapons detection. You bought an HVAC company,
Painting company.
painting company. What else you bought? Or what else you buying?
Those are
what
the
else
ones
are your interests?
So, sorry.
We've got, so what we did was we had a VA use a software and start to pull lists and lists and lists of companies. What we're looking for is a recurring revenue company that has, it's a service-based business that's recession-proof, but one of the caveats is, like, if we were to go back and buy this painting company again, we wouldn't do it because people paint their house once and then it's 8 years later, 15 years later before they paint it again.
You want the recurring revenue.
We want the revenue that we have repeat customers and we're not constantly going after new customers or waiting on word of mouth.
So before we started, let's go into why. Because if you're making a ton of money buying $40,000 houses, why would you diversify?
You said that almost like it's still hard to believe. You're like $40,000.
Believe everything you see on the internet, kids.
I'll show you the contract right now. I can put it up to the camera. I'm just kidding.
That's fine.
Why?
Why diversify by acquiring businesses?
I was bored. That's the real answer. I was bored doing the real estate side of things because we just built our system so well where it was kind of just running on its own. And I'm sitting here going, I got to do something else. And I love building the businesses. I hate starting them because all of the crap that you have to do, get a website, get your email set up, get your logo, get all your documents in place. That bores the hell out of me.
So you probably like going in at a company that's at that 70% level and you can add that 10 to 20% more.
Yeah.
And you're the nitrous.
I like that.
Are you going to build these up and sell them, or
the painting company? Probably.
Yeah.
The security company, hopefully. Yeah, that would be that would be good.
Well, a tech company, that's where you're going to make. You can make millions and millions of dollars in real estate, but those tech companies, that's where you make the hundreds of millions of dollars.
And that was the thing too. Like real estate, there's a cap, right? I mean, you can get to a certain point. This is definitely not helping any of the real estate investors that are listening to the podcast. However,
it's fascinating conversation.
We're all scatterbrains anyway.
I mean, what's the thing that every real estate investor says? Real estate is not the ends; it's the means of the ends.
Right.
Right. So there's a cap on how many houses you can buy and how many markets you can start in, and all of those other things that go with building and scaling a real estate company. And we've done those things, and the extra effort to get to that next level just didn't seem to make sense.
Well, I think it was I forgot his name, but Life and Air. Who's the guy that does Life and Air? Anyway, it's one of those masterminds, lifestyle masterminds based off of real estate. And his big thing is as a wholesaler or as a real estate investor, you get to 300,000 and you want to break through. So then you bring on a big team, and next thing you know is you have this big team, but you're still making 300,000.
Yeah.
Because to be able to sustain this team, you're making 300,000.
And ask any real estate investor, have any of them sold their real estate investing wholesaling business?
Right.
I don't know very many that have. You're working that forever.
Yeah. Tim, it looks like you got something to chime in on. Or not.
I don't want to say bad things about real estate investing. And it's one of those things, I say this a lot, and this is just a reality you have to face. This business took me out of the Marine Corps as just a broke idiot and has transformed my future and my kids' future to a level that if you'd told me I'd be where I am now when I first got out of the Corps, I would have laughed, probably put a dip of snuff in and walked away. Because at that time I was going to be a cop, state trooper actually. Big difference here in Texas. But now I do feel ungrateful sometimes when I can't be bothered with the house buying business. My phone rang earlier when Ryan and I first started working together 20 years ago, and it was the buy call. And a buy call, if you're new, us old guys, it was when someone was calling off the advertising line. And we still have advertising, but I don't answer the phone. It rolls over to me if they don't answer the phone. And Tim Harridge 15 years ago would have sprinted across the room to grab the phone.
Pause the podcast, take the call.
And this time I just kind of was filling up my coffee and was like, nah. Well, I don't get a rise out of it anymore.
Yeah. The chase is over.
Yeah.
Well, I've told ex-girlfriends, look, I will give you all the attention in the world. But if that phone rings and it says buy call, I am pausing this date and I'm taking that call.
That's a good point.
Anybody else that calls, I'm not taking it because I'm here with you. You are the only thing that matters. But that phone call, yes, it is more important than you in this date. I'm sorry. And that's
as a military
that's a horrible way to say it.
The ringer I used to have was Reveille. And Reveille is what they play on military bases to wake your ass up in the morning. And that was Like there's nobody that was ever in the military that when they hear Reveille, they don't perk up and immediately. And so my ringtone for the buy call used to be Reveille because literally it would wake me out of my sleep and I would take the call 100% of the time. I bought houses at 1 a.m. when I was young in this business. I mean, I had an old over the road trucker called me up and he's like, I'm selling this house tonight. I was like, I'm on my way.
Okay.
And had a spotlight looking at the house, got the cops called and everything.
But the thing is, though, like what I was saying is like, I literally just told a girl that I was, dating, whatever, love, not love, that doesn't matter. That, by the way, this phone is more important.
Yeah.
Can you imagine 2024, a Tim Harridge, you telling your wife, your family that this phone call is more important than them?
No.
Not at all. 10 years ago?
Yeah. Ken D'Angelo, the founder of Homevestors, called them drop your fork phone calls.
Yeah.
He was just basically like, no matter what meeting you're in, if you heard zero balance probate.
But to just shift away from that to go back to the point of this conversation is the real estate aspect of it, yes, got you to a point, but then you were able to pivot into lending, pivot into consulting, pivot into different places. But if you were still wholesaling it and just flipping, would you be in the place you are right now?
No.
And it goes back to Ben. It's like, yes, you got bored, but there's also that pivot element of being able to buy a business, buy this, and develop that.
Yep, 100%. I mean, and I saw that too when I was like, I've got a fiance now, and I was glued to that phone. I still am glued to the phone a lot of the times, but it's for other things now. It's not, I'm not answering those freaking calls. It's not happening. And that used to drive her nuts. And I couldn't stop. I was addicted to it. I was like, oh my God, somebody's calling. I got to answer this phone.
Well, you're not addicted to it. The problem is in that business is I'll never forget my oldest son back when he was still in Little League football. There was one night I was coaching practice and I didn't hear the buy call phone go off in my pocket. And I called the guy back after practice. He didn't answer. The next day I called and followed up with again. They had already sold the house. And like, I was just like, would you mind telling me what you sold it for? And he told it me, and it was like this house in Richardson. And, in my mind, that cost me $20,000. And you just, I think you've got to go through, we talk about it with so many guests on the show, you got to go through that phase, but it's not sustainable. Mm-mm. You can't exit it. You can't, it is a dog eat dog world. The next guy or gal is going to answer the phone. And nowadays, you young whippersnappers, they'll close them over the phone. They're happy writing a sight unseen offer. And if they can't close it, they can't close it.
Well, you just said something right there that's interesting, because too many real estate investors, the everyday investor, it's the next thing is the next assignment. It's the next flip. It's the next house. It's the next rental. They never, I'm not all of them, but like there's this commonality thinking of not really having a thought, what's the exit?
Right. I think I've exited several companies. The other benefit to exiting, and we talk about this a lot in some of the masterminds I'm in, is say you sell a business for 2 years worth of profit. We talk about the time value of money. What you just did is you bought yourself 2 years worth of time. And with that 2 years worth of time, if you can build another business that you can then sell for 5 years worth of revenue, and you can do it in 3 years, stay with me. In 4 years, you've now achieved 7 years worth of income, right? And so what starts to happen when you exit, the first exits really in our career in this industry is when we sell houses, right? We create equity by rehabbing them. They become worth more. We sell them, and we capture kind of future revenue. Well, then when you start selling rental properties, if you think about it, you're really exiting a business. If that thing was making you $200 a month, right, and you're making $2,400 a year, but you can make $24,000 right now by selling it, you're capturing 10 years worth of revenue. You are giving up the appreciation, which would be future revenue growth or something like that when you're analyzing a business. But can you take that money and turn it into more revenue? And so I think, when I look at exiting, I'm currently trying to talk Jennifer into selling all of our single family houses. I don't even want to own the one I live in because I hate working on houses. I've done it for 23 years. I've worked on thousands of them. I grew up in a construction family. I don't like it. I want to spend my weekend drinking beer and eating nachos. Or hiking or traveling. I don't want to spend my weekend mowing a yard or changing light bulbs or worried about why there's brown spots and calling the sprinkler guy.
You want to be able to call a landlord and be like, hey, fix this.
Yeah. Yeah. And then leave. But then you think, okay, say we get, millions of dollars in cash. How do you make sure it continues to grow? How do you make sure it's protected? Right? Because the key is if you can get to $1 million and then you can get a 20% IRR, well, let's just play around. Say you can get to $1 million by the time you're 40. If you can get a 20% IRR on that $1 million for the next 5 years, it's worth $2 million. So it may have taken you the first 20 years to get to $1 million, but literally one can become 2 in 5 years. Well, then if you stay with me at 45, you got 2. At 50, you got 4. At 55, you got 8. At 60, you got 16. So you went from 1 to 16 in 20 years when it took you 20 years to go to 1. And so that's kind of the game I'm playing now. Is it's return on equity. It's multiple of capital invested.
Basics of compound interest.
Yeah. So I think when I'm talking about exiting, you have to understand one way of exiting is compressing time by getting years worth of revenue. Like Harper Belmont is sellable, right? And you've got revenue. And if you could get 3 years worth of revenue in the bank today, it's not about, well, now I don't have a job. It's about what else can I do with this money and this time to then shorten the next 5 to 10 years.
So, we were talking about off camera, yesterday I had to took a meeting with a wealth banker that their only product is selling businesses. And, I have an investor in my company, but I never really thought about selling my business. And I was driving over there and I was like, would I sell it for $5 million? I was like, yeah. But then I was like, would I sell it for $3 million? And I was like, well, how much debt, how much this? And then how, I've been working my ass off for 4 years.
Yeah.
And I haven't really paid myself for 4 years. And then I was just like, you know what? But it goes back to that valuation of time. If somebody were to acquire Harper Belmont, hey, we need you to stay on for the next 4 years. We'll pay you $250,000 a year plus the equity of your business. I'd be like, you know what? Maybe I'd probably take that deal. Just because, we all have burnout. We all work our ass off. Do I love what I'm doing? Absolutely. Do I like money and freedom? Yeah. But, until I make that offer, I'll just keep grinding.
Well, we talk about that in our business too, because my business partner is significantly, I don't want to say significantly if he listens to this, he's older than I am.
Ooh. Well, Tim is significantly older than I am.
See?
Well, if Todd's had a best friend for 50 years, we know he's at least 50.
There you go.
So we talk about it and we talk about our number. In all of our businesses, what's your number? If we got that offer, what is it? And we didn't have that in the beginning when we started to acquire these things. And then we sat down and we're like, we got to have a strategy here because you have a very different life path than I do.
Right.
I've got 21 years until I'm your age. If somebody gave me a number, what?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but you have to have that alignment.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's like, well, my number's this. I go, I don't want that. I want significantly more than that. So we had to go and figure out what the plan was. If/when we get that number, what do we do?
Yeah. But I think that's one of those everyday investor things is, people don't think with the end in mind, with the exit in mind. So maybe the exit is not selling your business, but is it 100 rentals? Is it 100 whatever? Is it 50? Is it sell them all and just live on the ranch?
I think it's got to be a combination of both. And I challenge everyone to think about it because what you also find is my original number was 40 at 40. I'm 46 now. I wanted to have 40 free and clear rentals at 40. And at that, in my mind, then I'd be making $40,000 a month for the rest of my life. The funny thing is if you actually took 40 houses that I could have bought way back when, and you applied all the rent growth and all the property taxes and all that, I'd have been making about 50 or 55 a month. And you'd probably have, $12 million worth of houses. It's a great number.
And that number 15 years ago, 20 years ago would be astronomical to that 24-year-old former Marine.
Yeah.
46-year-old Tim Harridge, who's done business with Blackstone, who's been in Wall Street, who's been in Linder.
Who wires $1 million a week.
12 million suddenly, that's not legacy. That's my money. That's great. I can live off that. That'd be fun. But now you've got that, well, what about my kids? What about my kids' kids? What about that legacy aspect of it?
Yeah, and you also start realizing that in general, rent houses don't make money. By the time you start really adding in repairs and maintenance and vacancy and property decline,
Taxes.
yeah, I mean, it's just Lord, a house right now in Garland that I told Jennifer to sell. She wants to keep at least. We bought it on MLS for $140. It's worth a solid $375 now, and that's it since 2018. So that's not even a long time hold. But there was a leak under the bathtub apparently, in pier and beam house, and the tenant, instead of calling anyone, just kept taping the floor down. So the entire house, the floors are just peeled up. I mean, that house needs every bit of $40K just to get it rent ready. If I was going to flip the house, it's $60K. My point is, at $1,000 a month, that's 60 months worth of that income I was counting on. That's what you don't think about when you're planning that way. And so where I've realized is the real money in rental properties is, one, the tax advantages, because I make a boatload of money and don't pay taxes. Number two, it's in the equity appreciation. And I used to say all the time, Texas wasn't an equity market, blah, blah, blah. But that was really before I understood the compound effect of appreciation across a larger asset base. So I'd say that, rent houses don't make money until you sell them. But you got to know, just like selling any business, you got to know what you're going to do with the money next to continue the growth curve.
Real quick on that, I think there's the lesson that I heard out of that is, yes, there's a lot of math, there's a lot of real estate, there's things, but the ability to change your mind and ability to learn is so huge that people don't really think about that. Because if you're not willing to bring on new strategies, willing to learn and go, you know what, maybe I was wrong 5 years ago, you're never going to grow as a business person. Yeah. And be able to take feedback. I mean, hell, Paul and I, we argue about stuff all the time, but hopefully he sees that I'm a good enough leader that, you know what, you're right on that. No, he's shaking his head. I'm always right. Thanks, Paul.
John Maxwell wrote a book, Failing Forward, and I just love the concept. I have no problem making mistakes. I love finding out I was wrong about something.
Right.
Because, to me, it's just that much closer to being right about something.
But the thing about that is, when you fail, you learn. Think about when you go work out. When you work out and you tear down your muscles, that's how you build and grow. It's the same thing with failure. You fail at a thing, you learn. Hopefully you learn. If you didn't learn from it, you really failed.
I've got a friend, his dad owned a plumbing company. It had a couple trucks. He went to college, learned about business, joined his dad's plumbing company. They've got hundreds of trucks now and sold for a lot of money to a very large national company that's going around buying up plumbing companies. And now he gets to be on the board and gets to help roll up other companies in other states. I think anything, and I'm living proof, if you'll just open your mind to the possibility and be open to new opportunities, it's amazing what's out there.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, is have the exit mind, be open to pivoting, and just always learning. Like literally when we were setting up, having lunch, I was reading a thing for the SMU, and literally part of their prep is like being vulnerable and open enough to keep learning. Even if you are an executive, keep learning, because that's the only way you're going to grow as a leader.
Yep.
So what's next? Is it more businesses? Is it expanding the real estate business? What's the next steps for Ben and Todd?
Well, the next step right now is to grow that security company as big as we can get into as many schools as we possibly can, and then see where that takes us on a national level. While also, so one of the things that I read on the way down here was a book called "A CEO Only Does Three Things," and I was not very good at those three things. So that's
What are they?
Huh?
I know.
They're like, come on now.
It's people, numbers, and culture. And we have been very, very bad at hiring people. We would see the need and immediately go and fill that gap. We had no structure or process behind that. We've since fixed that. We didn't have a real good grasp on our KPIs, which is something that I'm now focusing on. We have the KPIs, but they were just from a template spreadsheet. Now we're going to go and focus on those. And then the culture was about the only thing that I was decent at, was the culture aspect. But being the CEO of the company, you're constantly thinking that you need to do a million different things. When if you focus on those three aspects of your business, the rest takes care of itself, because you put the people in place to be able to do those things. You get the right team around you that's actually excited to be there. People that we had in the past were not excited to be at work. So we've built a really good, solid team now, and are continuing to do that. We just made a hire yesterday, and we're getting those right people into the company that can help us grow towards that next level.
I think that's a huge lesson, because I think in the real estate investing world, especially wholesalers, maybe even a flipper, because I would say most flippers, at least on the smaller side, maybe it's them and their wife or their husband, but that's their team. But if you really want to grow and scale, you need to have a team. You need to have the operations. You need to have marketing, because otherwise you don't have a business. You have a solopreneur job that you call a business.
Yep.
Because like that's one of the things I always giggled at on the side. Yes, I giggle.
I know.
Yeah.
You do the shimmy too.
Yeah.
He sings Taylor Swift too.
Hey, I love me some Taylor. No, but the thing is, like, they always call them entrepreneurs. And it's like real estate investors typically are not entrepreneurs, because entrepreneur is, if you really look at it, it's about reinventing. It's about inventing new processes, a new thing, and developing a thing.
Getting jobs for people.
Right. But as a real estate investor, you're literally just doing something somebody else already invented, and you're not employing anybody.
Yep.
Maybe a contractor here and there.
So I've had 17 startups.
I didn't know that.
I've sold 4 or 5 of them. I've shut down a lot of them. Some of them are still there. And Ternus is the absolute hardest thing I've ever done. My dad says it could be age, but in my 20-something year career, I don't recall being at my mental capacity as many times as I have the last couple months, because there's so many numbers and so many new people and so many new processes, and the culture is shifting, and the risk expands. And I've been in the captain's chair in some small companies. I haven't been in the captain's chair in this company. I mean, in this size of company. And the beautiful thing is, it's all the mistakes I've made along the way have like literally prepared me for every problem I've faced in the last 8 months. And the people that I've brought on in the last 90 days, wow. Like, we have sat here today and we've recorded 4 podcasts. We had lunch together before that. You weren't here yet. I was in a board meeting before that. I have not looked at a computer screen since 10 o'clock this morning. I don't even know where my laptop is, honestly, somewhere in this building. But I have the apps. I am not worried for the first time in a long time about our loans getting underwritten, our loans being funded. We funded the first loan 3 weeks ago that I didn't have to push the button on because I hired enough right people and watched them do it right enough that I felt comfortable if she loaded it and she approved it, away we go. So I think hearing you talk about the 3 things the CEO should do, I call myself a president and not the CEO because I don't believe, it's kind of a cultural thing. Like I want to be like in the trenches and then we'll become C's whenever
It's just
the company's ready for C's. But it's the people part is the most important thing, I think. But then also the culture. I resisted, we talked about this earlier with Terry. I resisted establishing core values at my company.
Why?
I resisted it because I've seen it done so wrong so often that it's a lot of fluff that people put on their wall that they just want to impress themselves and they don't live by it.
Yep.
And I got challenged at a mastermind to create and implement core values, and not for myself or not for the wall, but it guides the company on how we do business here. And I accepted the challenge. I've done it before. So we implemented our core values a couple weeks ago. Had a couple people resign after that.
Which is good.
Yeah, you don't want those people.
Well, I do want them. But
If they're against your core values,
no, they weren't.
you
They
don't
weren't. They
want them.
weren't.
Oh, okay.
They just felt like the direction of the company was going different than it was before. And they had the integrity to come to me and talk about it and decide that it was best for them.
And that's good.
I
You want
had
that.
the utmost respect.
Quiet quitting is a real thing in 2024, and I hate it.
So our core values, I decided in true Marine Corps fashion to come up with an acronym, because that was the other thing. Like, too many people come up with core values, and you could ask any employee in the company what they are, and 50% have no effing clue.
I forgot ours.
So I came up with an acronym, and I used ChatGPT to help me. I told it about improvise, adapt, and overcome, being a Marine Corps thing. I told it about honor, courage, commitment, being a Marine Corps thing. And I told them about the 3 pillars that I built Ternus on, which is speed, transparency, and dependability, right? Like, because that's really what investors need in their lender.
Yep.
They think they need a low rate, but they don't. They just need speed. Tell me when there's a damn problem. Well, your loan, I called you last week. Said, dude, does this really need to close like on the 11th, or like it's our first loan in Arkansas? You were like, close before the 21st, we're fine. I go, thank you very much. Like, but that's what I'm trying to, anyway. So I combined all that and played with it, and our core values came out to stars. Speed, because everything we do, we need to be fast. Transparency, we will tell people the truth. And even if it means I screwed up, or even I'm having a problem with your loan, you may need to look for someone else. I'm not saying it's declined yet, but like, because like in this business, if I screw up, I could cost you $50,000. And I may have an out, I may have a contract, but that's real pain. So anyway.
I could buy a whole house for that.
Speed, transparency, accountability. We're going to own our mistakes, and everybody, and then respect. You're going to have respect for yourself and your customers and the company and what we're trying to do here. And then the last is service, right? Because at the end of the day, we help people become millionaires. Yeah. We help people achieve their dreams. And so, beautiful thing. Fast forward. I'm not just patting myself on the back. We implemented it. We're giving out a weekly stars award now, trying to like really ingrain it. A friend of mine said the other day he overheard a conference call with one of my guys that was in an office, and he heard someone on the phone call saying, that's not how we do it here. Remember, our core values, speed and transparency come first. And like when he told me that Monday at lunch, I was just like, holy crap. I made fun of it. I was wrong because it, by doing it the right way, it now guides the actions of everyone at the company.
One thing I'd add to that, and this is from something from the mastermind I was at last week, is, and this kind of pairs well with kind of a theme of what we've been talking about with exiting. If your team, if you don't know what your goal and what your exit plan is for the company, your team doesn't either. So if you're like, hey, my goal for Ternus is to be $100 million company and have an exit, and you don't convey that to the team, they don't know what road or what speed or whatever you're on. So having that core value, but also having the end goal in mind and communicating that end goal is extremely important.
Super clear on that at Ternus. Everybody knows we're building towards an exit. Everyone knows that I may end up hiring a CEO to be above me and then fire me. Everyone knows it. There's people, everyone at the company right now is going to get to be a part of that exit. And I'll tell you this also, and then I know we're out of time.
Yeah.
And I won't like Ben to get to talk.
I'm loving this.
I was in the barber
Taylor
chair.
Swift.
I was in the barber chair last Thursday, and my barber, Steven, down the street, his nephew was his first chair and up and quit with no notice. And he was just really hurting because of this. Like, you know, it's kind of a small business, and he's like, I just don't understand. I said, well, Steven, I mean, why would he stay with you to get his license, and as soon as he gets his license, go somewhere else? He's like, I don't know. I mean, we didn't talk about it. He just came in with a box. I said, well, let's break it down. You've told me you're adding a night shift, and you're going to work the night shift, then bring in another barber. Did you ever talk to him about where he fit into that plan? He goes, no. I said, you're talking about opening another office, another location. Did you ever talk to him about, like, you've told me that you wanted him to maybe run it, but did you ever tell him? He's like, no. I was like, so like you're sitting around him all day talking about your plans and not mentioning him and your plans, which tells him he's not part of the story. Like, and I think we as entrepreneurs, we sit around and game plan things a lot. And you got to be careful, because if you're talking about it in front of your people and you're not taking a minute to tell them where they fit into that, or at least saying we instead of I mean, it's like, oh shit, I'm not part of his movie. I'm not going with him. Tim keeps talking about I'm this and I'm that and I'm this, and I'm sitting right here, so I guess I'm not part of it. So I think that's along the line what you said is like, we have to be careful that if we have these visions and have these plans, that we don't talk about them in front of people that either A, we don't plan to take there because it encourages like a lack of confidence, but B, if we intend to take them there, we need to make sure they understand their role and their future and your plans for them and your hopes for them. And then we also, last thing, we need to ask them what they think about it. Because you may be talking about putting someone into a VP role that has zero desire to ever be in that role. The thought of managing people may scare them to death. They may want to just be what they are right now. And they may need security. They may hear you talking about, oh, you could be a buyer one day. Well, they see you on the phone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they don't want that. They got to care for their elderly mother or whatever the case is, right? Like, so I think, you know, don't impose your will upon others. And if you're talking about plans, make sure people know they're part of them.
Yep. Like it.
I'm passionate about it. Like, and Steven was like, holy shit. And so like he actually reshared his nephew's post that he's now at a new place, and they went and grabbed coffee. And this is the Tim Harrod show now. He was telling me when he first got into barber that his mentor sat him down, took him to coffee, and the first thing he said is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And he was literally telling me how important this was to him. And I said, did you ever do that with your nephew? He goes, oh shit. Like, I mean, you know, ask people where they want to go, and then just like talk about how y'all can get there together.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So anyway, I'm done talking. We're almost done out of time. You're buying businesses. You got an AI security weapon company, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Missouri. How do they connect with you?
How do they connect with me?
Well, website, phone number, Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram. Instagram is where I live. A lot of the times we're doing a lot on there now, posting a lot of stuff. I followed you the other day.
You changed your thing.
I did.
Now it's like the Ben Allgeyer.
Allgeyer, yeah.
Allgeyer, yeah.
Yep.
Ryan, you want to take us out?
You know, it's just like, you know, last 15 minutes of just listening to the monologue. I
I'm
mean,
sorry.
Did you write that out beforehand, or it's like, I mean, I know you're passionate. It's like, woo. It's good shit.
I take what I'm doing at Ternus very seriously.
Yeah, as you should.
And
yeah.
we all were talking about, like, when you ask people to come work for you, like you're taking on that obligation of their life and their future and their security. And
well, I think there's a lot to unpack there. And one of the things is, like, you know, asking your team what do you actually want? And then actually listening hearing that, because there's so much just like, Ben wants he wants to be a this or that. It was like, but you know what he really needs is this. It's like, I get that, but listen to what Ben wants first, and then maybe propose, hey, do you want this as well? Because like, if I want one of my guys to do this, but maybe that's not what they want, then you're out of alignment. Going back to earlier with earlier business partner, like, and you need to be in alignment, not just with partners, but with your team and everything. But as far as taking us out, yeah, I think there's a lot to unpack on this episode.
Taylor Swift.
Well, I was going to obviously go back to Taylor Swift. I mean, you know who doesn't struggle with their goals or alignment? I think everybody on Taylor Swift's team knows it's the Taylor Swift show, and you're in a ride to make her billions and billions and billions of dollars. I would love to work for Taylor Swift if she's going to pay me billions of dollars.
Tell her.
Oh, she knows.
I've got a restraining order that says so.
This episode is brought to you by the restraining order by Taylor Swift and Ryan Harper. Ben, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, guys.
It's so funny with this project, this podcast, this interview segment, the show, whatever you want to call it. We discuss. It's like, you know what? Let's just talk, because there's too many times, too many guru types. There's just a lot of fluff. And like, even though these conversations can be fluffy, but it's real fluff. I'm okay with fluff as long as it's true, authentic dialogue.
Yeah.
It's when it's like, you know what, I've done 1,000 deals and blah, 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 blah. It's like, bro, shut up. You were foreclosed on. You can't get funded. You wrote 1,000 contracts, closed on 3. Shut up. So like these types of conversations, they try to be authentic. But just want to say thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having
Thanks,
me.
bud.
Yeah.
This place is cool.
Yeah.
It is.
So there, I teed it up so you could take us out.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for you and your team for doing this. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week.